Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel, Kalanati. Today I am going to talk about my most anticipated releases for October, November, and December of 2019. Where has this year gone? How did I already get to the fourth quarter of the year? Like, wow. You guys probably know how this type of video works, so I'm going to jump straight into it with my most anticipated upcoming releases from October. The first one is probably one of the strangest outliers I've ever included on an anticipated list because it's straight up horror, and that is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. Kingfisher is the pen name of Ursula Vernon. She primarily publishes for children under her real name, and she uses her Kingfisher pen name to publish her more adult fantasy, her fairy tale retellings, and anything that's so dark you really don't want kids picking them up by accident, like this book. The Twisted Ones is apparently very scary. It is completely horror, and I don't like scary things. I am by no means a horror reader, but I'm a huge Ursula Vernon fan, and I will read anything that she publishes under any name. The brief description of this one is: when a young woman clears out her deceased grandmother's home in rural North Carolina, she finds long hidden secrets about a strange colony of beings in the woods. And yeah, I will not be reading this one on my own. I will probably buddy read it with friends, and I will not go anywhere near it at bedtime. Next up, I'm really looking forward to Escaping Exodus by Nicky Drayden. I really enjoyed Drayden's debut novel, The Prey of Gods. I read that a couple of years ago and I was quite impressed. I think that was kind of a blend of science fiction and fantasy. It had more perhaps fantastical elements than science fictional ones. Escaping Exodus I think might be even further along the science fiction spectrum, and I really don't know much about it. I think the book has a beautiful cover, and it's apparently about people who live inside of beasts, like spacefaring beasts, and then something goes wrong? I'm really not sure, but I will hopefully get this one pretty soon. Then there is The Rosewater Redemption by Tade Thompson. This is the conclusion to the Rosewater trilogy, and since I haven't actually read the second book yet, I'm going to skip the description for Redemption. I don't want to be spoiled at all for anything. Rosewater was a very different feeling type of science fiction novel. It's set in Nigeria, if I remember correctly, and while it was kind of challenging in some aspects, the main character of Rosewater was not a particularly likable person. I did really enjoy it, and I think it won the Arthur C. Clarke Award this year as well. So I really want to read the entire series. I think that Thompson is going to be one of those authors that I really look out for pretty much anything he publishes in the future. And lastly, for October is one of my most anticipated books of the entire year, guys, and that is Interference by Sue Burke. I loved the first book in this series, Semiosis, and I think I will have to reread it before I read Interference, just to refresh my memory, but I've also always intended on doing a review of Semiosis, and I just didn't get around to doing that right after I read it. So yeah, Interference is a follow-up to Semiosis, which was Burke's debut novel, and I expect there'll be more of the same linguistics, interspecies communication, dealing with alien intelligences, all that fun stuff. Moving on to November, this first one I am very excited about. It is a new short story collection from Susan Palwick called All Worlds Are Real. I cannot find this book on Goodreads for some reason, but it is listed on Amazon, and the publisher Fairwood Press says it's coming out on November 5th, so I hope that it actually happens. I have absolutely loved the 3 or 4 stories I've read by Palwick in the past couple of years. Stories like Ash, which I describe as the giving tree for adults. Really good. I've always intended on getting into Palwick's backlist, but just haven't made time for it yet, but I will definitely get my hands on this new collection because I'm sure I'm going to love a bunch of the stories in it, and most of them will probably be new to me. After that comes something very different, The Midwinter Witch by Molly Ostertag. This is a middle grade graphic novel. I usually leave graphic novels and comics off of my anticipated list because there are just so many of them, they make my list very long. But this one looks to be the conclusion of this series. I think it's going to be a trilogy, and I really enjoyed the first two. The first one was The Witch Boy, and I think the second one was The Hidden Witch. This series is about a young boy who wants to be a witch like all the women in his family rather than a shapeshifter like all of the men. And it's so good and sweet, and it just makes me feel good inside. And lastly for November is The Lights Go Out in Lychford by Cornell. There seem to be a lot of conclusions to series in this particular batch of books. I'm not sure why. And I think that this Lychford novella may also be a conclusion to the series. Don't quote me on that one though, I'm not 100% sure on it. I've really enjoyed the Lychford novellas over the past 3 or 4 years as they've been coming out, and it'll be very interesting to see how this might wrap up. The series begins in the little village or town of Lychford in England, which seems to sit at a lot of magical boundaries, and there are 3 women in the town of various ages and jobs who are witches, and they are defending the town. And I should probably reread all the previous novellas to refresh my memory, but I don't have them all at hand. I'll have to see what I can do about that. And finally, we come to December, where there is a grand total of 1 book that I'm really looking forward to, and that is Dead Astronauts by Jeff Vandermeer. Goodreads does list this as the 2nd book in the Bourne series. I don't know if it's a sequel to Bourne, but it definitely seems set in the same universe and possibly in the same city. And like Bourne, I imagine it will be weird and screwed up and trippy and extremely interesting, because that's just the way that Vandermeer is, for me at least. So this says, Dead Astronauts presents a city with no name of its own, where in the shadow of the all-powerful company, lives, human and otherwise, converge in terrifying and miraculous ways. At stake, the fate of the future, the fate of Earth, all the Earths. How interesting. Now, the dead astronauts are actually a feature of the landscape. In Bourne, I wonder if we'll get some backstory on where they came from. And that is it. I feel like this list was possibly a little bit short. There are other things coming out in the last 3 months of 2019 that I am also keeping an eye out for, but these are the ones that I will definitely try to get through my library. I can't buy anymore because I am officially out of book buying budget for the rest of the year. So yeah, I'm gonna be very good and not buy any. But yeah, let me know if you are also looking forward to any of these books, or if there are any that I didn't mention that you were looking forward to. Leave me some comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back to talk to you again soon. And until then, bye.